That's great. Thanks, Annie. Welcome to Consumer Engagement Day, Brand Innovators, and our first panel on collaborative advertising, how AR gives ads new purpose. A lot of you have been hearing about XR, augmented virtual, and mixed reality. They're revolutionizing storytelling and how brands connect with consumers. And this journey is becoming much more collaborative, an interaction between the creator, the agency, the brand, and the consumer. And that's what we're going to drill down into today in an increasingly immersive and self-directed world of new media. Now, for us to fully realize these opportunities, we need to kind of unpack and understand where we are with the technology, with the state of content creation, where this plays in media. And so with this great panel of experts we have today, these are thought leaders, these are technology leaders, these are folks who are on the ground actually making the stuff happen on a day-to-day basis too. We're going to explore all this. So we're going to introduce ourselves first, and then we're going to get into the meat of the panel. I'm Tony Parisi, head of AR and VR ads and e-commerce at Unity. Unity is the leading platform for creating real-time 3D content and operating businesses based on that 3D content. We were forged in the game industry, but for the last 5+ years, people have been using our tech to create experiences and applications in a range of industries, including automotive, media and entertainment, and most notably brand advertising, which is what we're here to talk to you about today. We also have an advertising platform in game that helps our game publishers monetize, that has significant reach. Over 2 billion consumers are reached by our ads platform monthly, hundreds of millions of daily impressions, and so on. So we can unpack all of that and how all these technologies and everything work together later. But without further ado, I would love our panelists to introduce ourselves. And we're going to start with Christina Park at LoopMe. Good to see you, Christina.
Hi, good to see you. Hi, my name is Christina. I'm the VP of North America Enterprise Sales here at LoopMe. LoopMe is a leading outcome-based platform that focuses on driving measurable uplift against business outcomes like brand lift, offline sales, in-store visits, along with online sales and conversions in real time. We've been in business for about 9 years, and we have a strategic partnership with Unity.
Thank you, Christina. Let's turn it over to Keith Soljacich at Digitas. Take it away.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me. Yes, my name's Keith Soljacich. I'm a VP Group Director of Experiential Technology at Digitas. And at Digitas, we firmly believe that being the connected marketing agency is the best way to connect with consumers, find those pivotal moments, and activate in the right medium channel with the right creative at the right time. And increasingly so, we're finding that XR is the way to connect with consumers in a way they want to connect. And so myself, leading the XR practice at Digitas, as you mentioned, we've been in the weeds and in the trenches building these XR experiences for brands, experimenting, testing, learning what works, what connects with consumers, and growing that practice, as we go.
And finally, Zoe Soon from the IAB.
Thanks, Tony.
Hi, Zoe.
Hi, I'm Zoe Soon, Vice President of the Experience Center at IAB. The IAB is an industry trade organization that helps develop standards, conducts research, provides legal support for the online advertising industry. I head up the Experience Center, where we're focused on emerging platforms and evolving consumer behavior to help the industry future-proof. So specifically AR, games and esports, and voice and digital assistants.
So this is so exciting to me personally, because I speak to each one of these panelists at least on a weekly, if not a daily basis. We collaborate on a lot of different things together. This is the first time we've all been on a panel together, though, and this topic is of such import and weight that I can't wait to get into it. So let's dispense with the preliminaries and let's get right into it. We thought we would frame this conversation today by doing a little myth busting. I think there's probably a lot of folks in the audience who are not quite clear on what's going on with VR, AR, all these cool, nifty technologies. Maybe you've heard the buzzwords, maybe you've experimented a little bit, but you're not quite sure what the state of play is. So let's start by drilling into some of those. And we're gonna take 4 myths on here. And the first one is that AR, VR, mixed reality are just a fad. They're the bright and shiny thing that everyone's excited about or has been for the last 3 or 4 years, but is not going to be here to stay. The next one is that it's hard and expensive to produce. And we're going to really drill into that and what it takes these days. You don't need a Hollywood production budget. I mean, sometimes you do depending on what you're making, but certainly not for marketing content. Third myth is that it's only for certain verticals. That, it'd be really good for entertainment, for example, but I'm not sure what you could do, say, with a CPG brand. So we're going to dig into that. And finally, and maybe most importantly to this audience, that the ROI is questionable. We don't know how to measure this, that, this is sort of, again, it partly comes back to expense and all that. But that even when you've gone through the expense, we don't know what the results are and whether it was worth it or not. So let's tear into it. And I want to start with the novelty thing. And I want to start with you, Christina, because LoopMe just shared with us that they've done a consumer survey or a customer survey really recently. And talk to us about that and maybe other things related to this idea that it's a fad and it's not here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. So last week, through our proprietary survey technology that we call Audience Intelligence, we surveyed over 2,300 Americans and asked them about the value of immersive advertising experiences. And it was pretty interesting, the things that they had to say. So nearly 20% of those respondents said that they were more likely to pay attention to an interactive ad. 2/3 of those people said that they remember seeing an ad while playing games on their mobile device. 1/4 of those respondents said that their attitudes of ads would improve if they were more engaging. And almost 40% of respondents said that they might find it useful to use a virtual look or first look product kind of experience at home. And I think overall what we saw is there's a huge opportunity out there for brands to reach consumers, I think, in a much more meaningful way, leveraging formats like AR and VR.
Wow, that's great. That's pretty significant. I think, Keith, you may have actually had a compliment to this where you're saying people are really asking for it. You believe the demand is there and it's pent up. So, I mean, that might go hand in glove with this consumer sentiment that Christina was just pointing out.
That's right. That's right. Not only are we activating these AR campaigns, but yes, the consumer demands them. And we've tipped over in the last year, and certainly the pandemic has accelerated that, to the majority of consumers do prefer brands that offer AR shopping experiences or AR immersive experiences. And really, this is born out of the fact that the consumers want to put themselves in the middle of these brand experiences, and that's intriguing to them. It connects with them. It gives them a chance to personalize what they're shopping for and really build confidence. And that's key here is building confidence in their purchase or their brand experience.
Wow. Okay, Zoe, do you want to amp that as well? Because IAB has been involved in some studies, has been getting some really interesting data on this as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think ever since Google and Apple equipped phones with AR-ready software, it's becoming increasingly a part of consumers' daily lives. I think we're projected to reach 85 million users in the US alone this year. I think what we're seeing is marketers haven't quite worked out how to leverage this new capability. My dad thought the internet was a fad. Everything starts out as a fad, but the forward-looking brands, we're seeing that change, which is why we've started the AR board, which Keith and Tony are a part of. 97% of the brands on the Forbes most valuable brands list have or are currently engaging in AR campaigns. So I think people are thinking it's a fad, but it's just people haven't leveraged it yet.
That's another awesome stat. Thank you. Okay, so hopefully we will have a through line here where we come back and have even more interesting stories and statistics around this to support this idea that maybe we are moving beyond the novelty phase of this to real actionable here. But let's move on because we have 3 other myths I want to tackle before we jump into some other topics. Next one is, again, and it's too hard to produce, that this is like Hollywood budget stuff. If I want to make an interactive, immersive experience, I'm going to need to hire James Cameron or someone like that to create that for me. And it's going to take a year, and it's going to be like building a video game, which can be complex even with the simplest of tools. Keith, why don't you start us off with this one? Like, what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, Tony, just like any other ad format, some of your traditional ad formats, television, there's levels. And there's levels that you can tap into to right size your AR brand experience solution. Whether you want, a rather simple virtual try-on, on one of the social platforms, utilizing some of your existing assets, that's on the lower complexity side. Maybe you want to really go out and tap into some of those Hollywood production budgets that you talked about, Tony. And really, your imagination is your only limitation with AR. So what it really is going to come down to is what either that ROI or ROAS is going to be that you're trying to achieve with the campaign, finding a right solution, finding a way to test, something that you'd like to disrupt that you're already doing and improve upon. Find that business challenge you have and tap into AR to solve it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned those social platforms. As Zoe and I know through our conversations with this AR board at the IAB, the social platforms have mentioned the creative costs can be just single-digit thousands of dollars. It does not have to be a massive spend on the production side of this to try something for a simple try-on or one of these little nuggets of AR that is delivered through the social platform. Now, of course, going along with that, it's maybe a sort of modest investment in ad spend. I mean, there's the creative, but then there's how much you buy in the media to actually have an effective and testable campaign. But that
and credit to the
doesn't
Unity
have to be
team.
huge.
Credit to the Unity team. You guys have led the way in content creation in the XR space, and Tony, we've been working on this for a few years, and really putting the game engine in the hands of creators, both big and small, production shops, both big and small, has expanded the capability. And then, moving into even these low code platforms to build XR experiences. Again, we can tap into such a boundless opportunity in creating these. And really, brands, they just have to tap into some of the assets they already have to go bring these to life.
Yeah, that's great, Keith, and thanks for bringing it up. And not to be too self-serving around Unity, but I mean, at least we should talk about the trend in how these new game engine technologies are making it. We're democratizing the 3D content creation process. That was certainly Unity's mission going into video gaming 15 years ago when the company started. And we're seeing lots and lots of low-cost options and low total cost of ownership options for creating the content. So that's a really good point as well. I want to move back because we still got two more myths to dive into here. Here's my favorite of these myths. It's only for certain verticals. It's really only for entertainment, dancing characters, Spider-Man jumping around in your space, which is awesome, by the way, that virtual Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse campaign that was launched last year with 8th Wall. Zoe, what do you think about that? And what are you seeing from the IAB's purview and some of the brands and kind of vertical experiences that are being created?
Yeah, it's definitely not just for entertainment. I think if last year taught us anything in that socially distanced shopping world, AR really bridged an important gap for brands and consumers, allowing them to safely try on makeup. So it did really well in beauty, fashion. We also seeing AR do really well in the auto vertical. So car enthusiasts love being able to see cars in 3D without going to the showroom. They can even test drive it. Home, Wayfair launched an impressive app where you can put furniture into your physical space, and they've seen propensity to buy increase by 11 times and return rates decrease. Like, how many times have you bought something and it just doesn't work in your space?
Remember that stat in a second, because we're going to come back to the fourth myth, and that's a good one. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I think the last one is the fast-moving consumer packaged goods, where you would just not expect AR to play a role. But if you think about it, one way to decommoditize yourself from competitors is to surprise and delight. And Amazon did this amazing thing where you can play with the packaging. So, kids love playing with boxes, but imagine if the box came to life. So yeah, we're seeing lots of different verticals benefit from AR.
Here we go, Keith. I don't know how much you can share about any of these things, obviously in terms of specifics, but you probably have some opinions about this and CPG and how this as a storytelling medium can be effective. Because I think the initial reaction would be, well, spinning around a product package, a tube of toothpaste, a box of cereal, whatever, that's not interesting. But I don't think these are the scenarios we're talking about when it comes to a CPG. It's not about looking at the product box, right, Keith?
It's not about looking at the product box, Tony, but it really goes back to, the the original days of marketing and advertising, right? We're marketing and advertising that product to solve a problem in your life, or to fill to fill a gap or something along those lines. And in the past, we'd make a TV spot showing those use cases. Hey, here's how this tooth whitening is going to, whiten up your teeth like never before. And that would be done with TV. But now with AR, we can actually show that. I mean, that's a personalized experience. So really, we're just taking the traditional methods of advertising and applying them to a new medium and putting the consumer first. And for consumer packaged goods, when you can connect that utility, that use of the brand with the consumer and put that in their hands, and we all have that smartphone not too far away from us at any given time. That is the real power I see for CPG, right? How is this product gonna help me out? And I can find out right there, maybe right there at the retail store by scanning a QR code on the pack, or scanning an image at retail, or something along those lines, or maybe clicking directly into a link that comes up in my social feed. So, you're one tap away or one scan away from a really incredible brand experience.
That's great. And that's a real good point, Keith, just talking about some of the capabilities. A lot of us tend to think about AR, I'm guilty of this all the time, as the 3D rendering you see with the phone turned on. There's a digital thing in your space that wasn't there for real, and that's the magic. But the other half of the magic is that the camera is recognizing the world. You're pointing at product packaging, or you're seeing landmarks out in the real world, and there's brand content potentially tied to that with either utility or fun or some combination of the two. So it is about our devices, being able to recognize the world and get more magical in that way too. That's a really great point. We got one more myth to bust. So sorry, Christina, I'm sure you probably have some supporting information there, but let's keep going. And that is that the ROI is questionable. And I am going to start with you on this, Christina, and then move to Zoe at least, but anyone can chime in. And after this, we're going to go kind of free form. Everyone just jump in, stop muting your mics and everything. Let's just go for it. And that one is ROI. So let's do it, Christina. What are we thinking here?
Yeah, so I think that has been traditionally a challenge when it comes to these more immersive ad experiences, right? They are a little bit more complex. Maybe they take a little bit more to build out, a little bit more time. How do you kind of quantify all of that effort, whether it's time spent or monetarily, to make sure that you're actually driving the outcomes for that particular brand? And so some trends that we've been seeing is that advertisers are trying to marry the best of both worlds, where they're taking this immersive ad experience and then trying to tie it to real world business outcomes, whether that's trying to tie it to brand awareness, consideration intent, or intent to purchase, and then leveraging advertising technology where they can't only just measure the effectiveness, right, but actually work to optimize towards those outcomes in flight. We've also seen folks trying to tie, immersive ad experiences to things that are a little bit lower down the funnel as well, which is quite exciting, whether it's some sort of app download, online conversion, or even offline sale.
That's awesome. Zoe, can you pick up on this? Because I think this is a great segue to talk about what the IAB is doing, the buyer's guide we just released that you and I put together with folks from Snap and Facebook and Google, and the board that Keith is on now to continue that work. So why don't you tell folks about the buyer's guide and kind of the roadmap of where we're going a bit on this AR, because I think it's really relevant to measurement and outcomes more than anything almost.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, the buyer's guide that we released earlier this year was intended to kind of give marketers an idea of the end-to-end opportunity. And now our next iteration is to kind of drill into that ROI and measurement component, because what we're seeing is AR can be used all along the funnel, and including the lower funnel. And on the slate for this year is sort of an ROI creative showcase. So we showcase campaigns with the biggest ROI across verticals, and across those campaigns identify a recommended way to measure ROI. And this is with a view to, in 2022, coming up with some global standards that we can all really speak the same language and measure across campaigns more easily.
Yeah, that is awesome. And that is another natural stage of the evolution. Like you were talking about, Zoe, the internet was a fad until it wasn't. Mobile video and advertising was a fad until it wasn't. It was, and then all of a sudden you need to have it somewhere in your strategy, right? And we'll get to that when we get to the actionable part of all this in a bit. Well, that's the setup. Look, folks, I feel we've already busted a lot of these myths, but I'm a little close to this. So I'd love to hear what folks in the audience think at some point about that, either via Q&A or any follow-ups we do later. So now I want to kind of change gears, and I want to go to a little more free form and visionary, and start with my friend Keith here to talk about storytelling. We're going to kick that off in a second. I just want to point out we're already getting questions from the field. They're all very sort of high level and general, and probably for a lot of you. So these I'm going to hold to the end. Any of you panelists who see anything that can be answered live right in here you want to type, you can do that as well, and multitask if you want. That's one great thing about doing a Zoom call. You can actually answer questions while the panel is going live. So I'd encourage that too. But just wanted to point that out there as a program note. All right, so let's talk about storytelling here, Keith. And this is what brought you and me together in a sense, right? This is potentially the most compelling and explosive and actionable and engaging storytelling medium we've had in the history of media. Just to put it out there, that's the way I think about it. I feel
no small feat, no small feat.
Yeah, no small feat, and we're still building the plane as we're flying it too. It's not. This isn't a done deal. There's just so much potential to this. So, talk to us about that.
Yeah, look, with AR is really the optimal next generation medium for storytelling, and especially for younger audiences that brands are trying to reach right now. This is the participation generation. I want to join in. I want to participate. I want you to give me something to do so then I can create with these tools you're giving me and share it with my audience. And whether that audience is 5 people or 5 million people, the Gen Z, the millennials, really, really reach out for that. So when you can take a storytelling medium like AR and put that in the hands of the people who really crave these unique experiences, you've got something really special. We learned quite a bit about this when we launched JFK Moonshot for the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum. And really, it was a brief that is not uncommon to marketers. Help us reach millennials, Gen Z. How do we drive them into the library with something disruptive? And with JFK Moonshot, which was an augmented reality recreation of the Apollo 11 mission to the moon, we distributed that out in advance of the 50th anniversary and to massive global success. Not only did we draw the attention of millions and reached even billions of people around the world, but leaning into AR as a storytelling medium gave every person who participated in that, put them in the story. How am I going to launch that rocket? Is it going to come out of my backyard? Is it going to come from my kid's school? And we had 140,000 people download the app. But most importantly, at the end of this campaign and all the magic and inspiration that it created around the world, the library saw a 5% increase in attendance. Great. That was the brief. That's what we were going for all along. And really to help such an incredible institution like that lean into a new storytelling medium, put something out there that's going to live on forever, and engage a whole new audience to learn about the legacy of one of our most famous presidents was an incredible achievement.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, I just got chills reliving and rethinking when you revealed the Moonshot app to me originally. It is an incredible piece of content creation and storytelling. I'll just say that right now. My favorite in the realm of XR documentary storytelling, the fact that you could reach that scale with mobile AR, that you can have that compelling experience, is just so impressive. So then Christina, well, yeah, no, go ahead, Keith.
Well, and Tony, I mean, what stood out the most was the amount of time that users spent in the app, right? And that's something we as marketers crave so much. And really, when you look at these AR experiences, and again, as we're delving into what metrics are important, time spent in engagement is incredibly important. And really, there's not much else out there that can engage like an AR campaign. A video is going to last 15 or 30 seconds. You may see a billboard for 5 seconds, excuse me, but we're seeing people spend 5, 7, 10, 15. People spent 45 minutes in our app. And that's just unheard of. And that's the power of storytelling and putting the consumer at the core.
Wow, that is great. Yeah, Christina, I was just going to play off this a little bit and say, well, so, Keith's in the business of making breakthrough stuff. This is what he does. He does this all day long. He lives and breathes it. This is why, he and I are such good buddies, because we're just like, get so inspired by this stuff. But like, is it a blip? I mean, this comes back almost to the novelty. I mean, what results are you seeing that can show how this can lead to positive consumer sentiment beyond, that one kind of breakthrough experience Keith highlighted? Can we see patterns in this and see just demand overall for this kind of storytelling that could lead to sustainable business for advertisers, for brands to be able to reach in a more repeatable way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I can speak to is what we've seen at LoopMe across all of our advertisers as a whole. And I think on average, what we've seen is that for kind of standard rich media creative, average engagement rates range anywhere between 3 to 5%. Now, when we up the ante there and we include AR, VR, or 3D playable experiences, that engagement rate increases to 5 to 7%. So it's going up quite a bit. Overall customer attention, we've noticed, is prolonged by 47% when you are dealing with interactive video ads. And so all of these things that marketers are doing to kind of create more of an immersive experience is resulting in higher engagement rates. And then because LoopMe is all about measurement, right, and outcomes, what we've seen is that when we loop in one of our purchase through products, whether we're optimizing in flight towards brand awareness lift, consideration, offline sales, or in-store visits, whatever it might be, we've seen campaign effectiveness go up by 2x.
Well, I mean, those are great, super promising early returns on all this stuff, right? I mean, you assume that there's the new is driving some of this now. We hope that you continue to scale like this, and we're not going to see too much of a drop in those kind of amazing numbers and lift. But obviously, only time will tell, and we need to have that runway and platform to keep working on this. Zoe, you kind of have a lens into this from a different perspective. Recently, we did the poll that IAB did. I think you can speak about this publicly now, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great, good, because otherwise it would have been bad to bring it up. So the Harris poll, can you walk us through this a little bit and how that consumer sentiment, and maybe, on the heels of the pandemic, and one of these days we won't even have to use that word anymore in these panels, but it has had such an impactful influence on everything and an accelerating influence on everything. And a lot of the poll, I believe, was around, life before, during, and after. So if you could give us a bit of a lens on that tied to, consumer sentiment about storytelling, and this is a media type, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, it was actually IBM that came up with the stat. The pandemic accelerated the shift from brick and mortar to online by 5 years. Like 8,700 stores closed in the US last year alone. And in the Paris poll, we found that 64% of consumers found that COVID showed them how easy online shopping actually is, and 28% of those are interested in using AR to find out more about products while shopping. I think the beauty of it is AR is like user initiated, so you're more likely to have your campaigns get organically shared and go viral. The consumer actually becomes the brand ambassador. They become part of the campaign, which is really, it's almost like an organic form of consumer reviews, right?
Love that.
And in the pandemic, we saw virtual try-ons increase by 32%. And shoppers who try on a product are 3 times more likely to buy. So we're really seeing, what we're seeing is this shrinkage between seeing an ad and experiencing a product. You don't have to see it and then go to the store to try it on. You just kind of collapse that gap, and your propensity to buy just goes through the roof then.
Yeah, Zoe, we love that about AR. I mean, it really can be taking these transactions almost to impulse buy. It's a super highway through the consumer journey, right? You may become aware of a product. You may tap on that ad, try it on, and buy it, and boom, I didn't even have to retarget you, remarket you. I just launched you right into that sale. And really, it goes back to something I mentioned at the beginning, which is AR gives you confidence, right? It gives you confidence in that product you're shopping for, that experience, that you're in. to say, hey, I understand now what this product is going to do for me. I've personalized it to myself. And now, but I don't need to go into a retail store if I don't want to buy that product with, this e-commerce button right now, buy now is great. So yeah, that super highway is critical. And it's the reason why we're seeing these conversion rates we're seeing, these engagements rates that we're seeing, and why, the secret hopefully is out there, the AR works.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to echo, I think what Zoe touched on. If you think about this past year, the pandemic basically turned our world upside down. For the longest period of time, we weren't allowed to leave our homes. We weren't allowed to go into a store and, do window shopping or go through that experience. And so again, I think that this past year has kind of accelerated the utilitarian need of things like AR, VR. And I think we're going to see more of those trends where folks, less about bringing that customer to you and more about you bringing that experience to them.
And post-pandemic, we're all taking stock in our behavior. What did I experience during the pandemic that I want to carry through going forward, even if I'm able to get back out there, hit brick and mortar shops, hit retail. That's great. But what behaviors am I carrying forward from the pandemic? Online shopping, virtual try-ons, product experiences. Those are behaviors that I really do believe that when we look back a year from now are going to be behaviors that people brought out of the pandemic and didn't leave behind. Certainly, we don't want to all stay at home all the time. We're going to leave that behind. But can I shop more effectively using digital tools? Yeah, absolutely.
And Zoe, if remind me with was it John from Harris Poll? We actually talked about this in the Q&A in that session. These behaviors are sticky, according to that poll as well. These are here to stay. Everything Keith just said is supported by that polling data as well. That we're not going to return to pre-pandemic attitudes about online shopping, about interacting with AR content. Exactly,
because I think the interesting thing, I think, is that, yes, we expect Gen Z and millennials to be there because they're digital natives. It's the older demographic that didn't really want to change their ways, but were forced to change their ways and are now discovering, oh, I don't need to walk myself. I don't need to carry heavy bags. I can trust my credit card online. All of these. So it opens up whole other demographics. I think that's what we're going to see out of the pandemic, new categories of consumers to target.
Well, all right then. Yeah, we've got one more slice to tackle here, and we're still getting some really great questions on the Q&A as well, and I want to get to them. It's that time in the panel where we're going to do a little bit of future casting, as people do, as is our want in panels. But in this context, rather than thinking about some far-flung sci-fi future of glasses and 5G and all the fun stuff we love to talk about when we're scrying, as we do as industry experts, let's root this in what's practicable now and in the next 2 to 3 years. So frame this in the near future. It's one of the beats that I like to explore a lot. So where are we going to be? I'm going to start with you, Christina. Where do we think we're going to be in the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to AR, VR, I think just kind of echoing, what I mentioned previously is that I think that we're going to see more advertisers embracing those formats. And it's going to be less about kind of having that big, flashy kind of PR worthy creative event or marketing campaign, or more about creating kind of, useful day-to-day tools that consumers can leverage to learn more about your product and eventually buy. I think marketers as a whole are going to look to make more of their marketing dollars more accountable to things like ROI. Even if the focus is to drive upper funnel awareness, it's going to be all about accountability and measurability. And then kind of, touching on Unity a little bit too, is I think brands are trying to figure out how to kind of play within the mobile and app gaming space. A lot of time is being spent there. I think with the pandemic, it's grown even more. So how do I really take advantage and understand this space to make use of it as a marketer?
Fabulous. Who else wants to jump in on this one? Next 2 to 3 years.
I can go. I predict 3 things. One, ubiquity. Consumers are going to expect to point their phones at products and reveal additional layers of brand content, expect to step into brand universes and experience a brand in 3D. I think we're also going to continue to see the shift from ads being a one-way, the consumer is the passive receiver, to it being participatory. Conversational AI, all of that is going to contribute to, I did this, so I get a different experience as opposed to if I did something else. And I think we're going to continue also to see the gap between ad exposure and consumer action reduce, right? So we're seeing in China live stream shopping, people watch an influencer buy it right from the stream. People can try on something and then buy it right there. There's so many less steps now that a consumer needs to take to purchase. So.
Yeah, Zoe, I love the word you used, which is ubiquitous. And in 2 to 3 years, I do believe that AR-enabled shopping experiences will be ubiquitous for many of the verticals that we work in. And really, it comes down to a couple things. One, I think there'll be a shift in consumer behavior. We're already seeing this, where we're moving away from text-based searches to camera-based searches. Consumers will be trained, and certainly the pandemic has accelerated that. Consumers will be trained to point their camera at something, to learn about it, to understand it, or utilize their voice for something they can't see. That behavior will shift. And when we're using our cameras to shop, AR experiences that are ubiquitous can be tapped into just from a visual standpoint. So now, if you couple that with the proliferation of 5G and utilizing artificial intelligence and machine learning to develop what happens when your camera sees something and can give you back that personalized information, we'll be talking less about, hey, how did you make that AR experience? No, that was generated by an artificial intelligence automatically based on what your camera sees. And then layer in 5G, which can enable at higher bandwidth and low latency, can make these experiences so much more high fidelity that it looks real. To me, when you couple that sort of photo real or extreme reality and layer in AI to create these experiences, that's where we'll be able to hit ubiquity. And that's going to be incredibly powerful as a consumer behavior shift.
Well, I want to riff on that last bit, Keith, and that's, I agree around 5G and enabling the photorealism, but it also does facilitate the AI. Not to get too technical, but what we can do with QR codes today by pointing the phone at simple imagery now that is ubiquitous finally after 10 plus years. Amazing. We came back around to that. At some point, the phone recognizes everything. And the way that's going to happen is with edge compute and 5G networks, because that's all about machine learning and delivering the right model to the phone. You don't have a big enough phone, no matter how fast and fat the storage gets on these phones. It's got to live in the network, and it's got to be able to come down, like that machine learning model is going to be able to come down really fast. So little technical sidelight on that, but again, it's the flip side of the graphics is that image and object recognition that recognizes the real world that's also going to be facilitated by the network. And this is all within, so you did play within the rules of my little game here, Keith. That is all probably coming in the next 3 years or so. We'll see exactly what 5G penetration is, but it is looking pretty promising right now for at least some of these use cases. There is one sort of part 2 to this conversation, which I want to do in about a minute each, because I want to leave time for Q&A. Biggest challenge to get from here to there in those 3 years. It could be a technical challenge, it could be a business or marketing challenge, it could be an interoperability one. You pick each one of you, just grab one out of the air, and what do you think we have to solve between now and that 3-year vision that you have all painted?
Well, first and foremost, education, and we're starting here. Brand marketers largely need to be educated, really from the ground up on how to utilize immersive experiences for their brand campaigns. It's pretty rare that we find brand marketers that are savvy and can apply this technology without support. So at Digitas, certainly we're there to bring not only the education, but the research and the reasons why, and then bringing creative solutions to those problems. So really, we've got a long way to go in educating brand marketers on not only what the technology is, but how they can tap into it. So, that's going to just take time and grind.
Yeah. On my side, I would say just getting the customer really comfortable, right? So what we see kind of more as a technical thing on our side when we're executing these type of ads is just getting the consumer to say, yes, I'll switch on my phone, right? That action sometimes, right, it is hard to get. And so I think as customers start seeing that there is inherent value in these experiences, right, that they're providing, I think they'll become more comfortable with kind of allowing some of these features to be established.
+1 to both of those. I think buyer education, brand education is going to be the first step, and then I'm going to lean into my industry hat and say, I think having a common way to value and measure and attribute these experiences and campaigns is going to be really important, because at the end of the day, people have KPIs to hit, they've got numbers to hit, and being able to compare AR with video spend and other forms of marketing, mixed media modeling will be really important.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's clear we have a theme here around education, and as Keith and you all mentioned, this panel is a good place to start. And that's a great segue into reviewing the 4 myths, and let's see how we did in busting those. That XR is just a fad, that it is too difficult and expensive to produce, that it is only for certain verticals, and the results are still in question, possibly not measurable and actionable. How do we think we did?
Fantastic.
I feel like we did yeah, we rocked it, right? I feel like I think we've come up with some great examples and data, and sort of the thought architecture around why that is true. I think the proof will be in the eating of the pudding in the next few years, and we just have to do the work. But I want to thank you all for your participation in this. This is, again, folks, these are people on the ground doing the work across various axes of solving this problem. So thank you all. This has been a great discussion. I want to have enough time for Q&A, so I'm going to start grabbing the stuff off the Q&A widget here on Zoom. And there's a fellow named Robert Soljacich asking a question. Any relation?
I was going to ask that. Is that your brother?
Brother, son, dad, uncle?
That's my dad, and certainly the
Go
marketing
dad.
legacy in the Soljacich family.
Wow,
Well, here we go. Are you looking at that question, Keith? I had no idea. That's great.
Well, go ahead,
Dad.
Tony.
Yeah, I'll read it. When speaking of metrics, are some of the traditional direct metrics, in quotes, relevant, such as cost per lead, cost per conversion?
They are, the Bible. That has not changed since the days of direct mail, right? How many pieces are you mailing out, and what do you expect to return? How many credit card leads are you driving? Couldn't be any different now. Really, we're still looking at the same thing, right? How are we driving conversion? How are we driving purchase? How are we getting our message into the hands of the consumers? And really, from when we sent out direct mail to now where we can ask you to just activate your camera, we're really asking you to do the same thing, which is consideration, right? Mm-hmm. Consider this brand because, it could help you. It could change your life.
Right. And, all of these, I think, measurements are rooted in those traditional methods, right? And obviously, as we've discovered, Zoe, this is, and all of us working with our brands, that's where we have to start. I would think, though, that we do see some new possibilities, some novel possibilities for different things we could measure that were not measurable before. Each advance in this technology, I think, creates new opportunities for measuring outcomes. And either of you want to, Christina, Zoe, you want to speak to that briefly? Yeah. But I mean, again, this is where we have to start with our customers, is what they're comfortable measuring today, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the advancements today of where we can kind of, move beyond, engagement, upper funnel engagements, along with kind of traditional online DR performance goals like cost per leads, cost per signup, is we now have the ability to actually tie it to offline sales and real world outcomes, right? Whether that immersive experience actually, drove the consumer to actually go into an auto dealership, right, and purchase and consider buying a car. whether that CPG immersive experience actually, enacted a consumer to go to Target and purchase that product in store. So I think that's what's exciting about today is our ability to basically take ad exposure and then tie it to a wide variety of outcomes, whether it be online or offline.
Zoe, anything to throw in there?
Yeah, just to add, I think the thing that's changed between when we had traditional metrics and now is, social commerce and social platforms. So you can measure the shares, you can measure how many times someone leaned into your experience and get that amplification, which is so valuable.
Oh my God, thank you guys. The rest of the Q&A is so beastly. I mean, each one of these topics is probably an hour to unpack. So let's do what we can until BI gives us the hook here, because these are all really great questions. I'm gonna start with this one. These are all from anonymous attendee. How are you managing and navigating your business, your customer strategies, and employee engagement, particularly over the past few months? Who wants to take that one?
Customer strategy and employee engagement particularly. Yeah, so I think I can speak to that, I guess, a little bit. So from kind of a partner perspective, right, a technology company, the past few months have definitely kind of been very unique. I think some of the things that we've kind of enacted is for our remote offices, we actually made 100% of that work remote. So we're not returning back to an actual official office. We recently went through a sales training as a sales team. And one of the things that the trainer kind of told us was that we should make every client meeting 30 minutes, every pitch 30 minutes. We start off with an agenda. Don't ask people to be on a Zoom call with you for an hour hearing a Zoom pitch, right? So make the best use of people's time. And then I think to kind of help with everyone's sanity, we're really trying to focus on culture and mental wellness for our team as well. So I think when the pandemic first hit, we were all working from home. I feel like we were working extra hard because we wanted to prove that we can do this. We're responsible. We can still do our job from home. And I think there was quite a bit of burnout. And so it's something that we're becoming more aware of and trying to invest in.
And in the advertising world, it's a highly collaborative industry. Certainly, whether you're at the whiteboard or you're at the bar, you're collaborating with both your colleagues and the clients that you work with. And we craved that and we lost that. So, a sizable contingency of our folks met up in VR and utilized some of the co-working collaboration tools and virtual reality to bring back that sense of presence and actually have a virtual high five or, stand around a whiteboard and draw something out. And certainly, Zoom is great for connecting instantly, but, virtual reality experiences are fantastic for combining that instant connection with presence. And we missed it. I know we're all looking forward to getting back into the office soon, but I don't think we'll leave behind what virtual and immersive experiences and collaboration tools can offer us as in a creative medium.
That's a great point. That's a really exciting point of view too, Keith, is the idea that there could be some of these virtual collaborations with immersive tech as well. All right, let's at least hit one more of these here. This is a fun one. We could go probably for the rest of the session on this. How do you see your audience demographic expanding to be more inclusive as the industry grows and evolves?
Well, look, inclusivity is in augmented reality is really powerful. We're tapping into the camera. So as soon as we turn that camera on, and if the consumer allows us, certainly we're asking for permission, we're asking for opt-ins. But if they are looking for a highly personalized experience, then because we have the camera, that experience can be inclusive and can really take in some of the traits of either your surroundings or you personally and customize that, in an inclusive way. No longer do you have to use your imagination to see yourself in one of these brand experiences. It's you. And I think that's a really powerful way in really eliminating some of that inherent bias, maybe in some of the legacy technologies. So using the camera is fantastic for inclusion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of like democratizing advertising, right? And so I think instead of the brand kind of creating an ad and putting people in the ad that they feel like, are their demographic or their customers, right? It allows consumers the ability to put themselves in that experience. So everybody is a potential, involved in that experience.
It almost comes back to the theme of the panel, right? And this is where we started, that it's a collaboration between the consumer and the brand and the creators that a lot of this gets collapsed and is more immediate and is much more, these feedback loops are much tighter. Keith, go ahead, Zoe.
I was gonna say, talk about engagement. Like before, engagement just meant someone had their eyeballs on your ad. This is like people are actively participating. And if you think about neuroscience, the more muscles, the more you have to participate in an experience, the more memorable it is. I think Mindshare, the study that everyone quotes, the Mindshare study, 70% better retention rate with AR because you're so much more engaged with so many more senses. So.
Yeah, and that the fluidity of this medium, the ability to recognize the world, this is a whole new table stakes, and it's so different from the more traditional things you were just mentioning, Zoe, and just putting ads in front of people where you had to guess who the people were. I mean, and the people were of a certain race, a certain age, and a certain gender, and lived in a certain place, or all these demographics that we had to construct and theorize and then in bulk throw at people. We now have at our disposal much more responsive technologies for telling the story, including people in the story, and having cohorts of one even to the extreme, right? Keith, you want to pick up on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, and look, in a increasingly cookieless world, personalization is key. Not if I've reached you and I've found you without a cookie, then that experience has to be adaptable to who you are on the other side of that. And certainly, we're not totally in the Wild West here, but certainly we've got to have these AR experiences that are adaptable. And again, if I can take that AR experience, find some utility, find some engagement, or just have a little bit of fun, create some content, that's a different value exchange for the brand completely. Whereas, yes, I was able to find you because of a cookie, and then you viewed my ad, versus, without a cookie, you've discovered this AR ad, you've created a piece of content, and you shared it out to your followers. That's a completely different equation. And I'm excited to see how we can take that.
Wow, we are coming real close to time here. So any last little thoughts? Everyone gets a last word here. Jump in, don't be shy. Take a half a minute, and then we're going to wind up.
I kind of like the last question that was like, what trends in consumer behavior are particularly important?
We can absolutely key in on that too. I just want to make sure we have time to do it justice. So go for it, Zoe.
I was going to hit on it really quickly because I think the interesting thing now is like the shoppable formats and that direct, like see it, buy, and the live stream shopping. Like commerce is just exploding with this shift to digital. And I just think because commerce is exploding, I hope brands make the connection with how much AR can help that. So.
Yeah, I would just encourage marketers here to lead with strategy, right? What's that insight that you've extracted from your research that is going to move the needle with the consumers you're trying to target? And then how do you bring that to life in an immersive way? It doesn't just have to be AR to be AR. And certainly not every AR campaign is going to work if it's not backed by data, insights, and a solid sound strategy. So really, if you're going to lean in, I would encourage marketers to start there. Use the data, utilize the insights, and then utilize a creative shop that can mold that into an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Christina.
On my side, so
I've
been in digital advertising for quite some time. And I remember when they said video advertising was a fad, like that was going to go away. And then I remember mobile advertising was a fad, like that wasn't a real thing. And so I think when it comes to AR, VR, we're just getting started, you know, and I think the abilities that our smartphone has now, right, the technical limitations, it's just the beginning. And I think as we see that evolve, this is going to become more common practice, I think, for advertisers, which is exciting.
Yeah, so
That
get in
is so
now while
exciting.
the space is uncluttered, right? I was
Say that
saying,
again, Zoe?
so get in now while the space is uncluttered, like learn what works for you. Don't wait till the last minute when it's, you know, when everyone's on there.
Absolutely, and we are all here to help you on that journey. This has been really great. I want to thank our hosts at Brand Innovators, and I want to thank our amazing panelists and my dear friends, Zoe, Keith, and Christina. Can't wait to see you all IRL. And Ariel, hello. I'm going to hand it back to you at BI. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you all for joining. What an incredible, insightful panel. That was just so amazing. I have no words.
Well,
So
okay then.
So thank you all for joining. I will now bring on our next panel of the day. We have another exciting lineup of speakers for you all. We're going to be talking about the new age BevAl consumer. So please welcome 4 panelists: Brad Schultz, the co-founder and CMO of Future Proof Beatbox Beverages; Brandon Schwartz, the co-founder and president of Drinksmith; Tim Angelillo, founder and CEO of Sourced Craft Cocktails, and all moderated by Liz Denworth, the Vice President of Sales at Micmac. Welcome.
Thanks, Tony.
Everybody,